When it comes to wrestling games during the 6th generation, the two consoles that reigned supreme were the GameCube and the PS2. And especially the latter, with not just the plethora of WWE games, but other ones like Galactic Wrestling and Rumble Roses, both of which I've reviewed. That's also not counting Fire Pro Returns, the Def Jam games, or the countless amounts of Japanese exclusive wrestling games. Sadly, there wasn't much love for the genre on the Dreamcast with some exceptions, and not all of those were done well. Many that were only came out in Japan. That leaves us with only one console, the original Xbox. While Microsoft had a pretty good grip on certain genres during this generation, FPS games and racing games, they didn't have a strong grip on others. Fighting games, despite having some, JRPGs, which led to more Western developed RPGs like Cold War 1 and 2 and Jade Empire, amongst others. And one of those other genres was wrestling games. Aside from the Backyard Wrestling and Legends of Wrestling games, which, yeah, I'd rather not talk about those. There was the Wild Rings from Payon, which was another Japanese exclusive wrestling game. Which finally leads us to the WWE side of things. There were 3 of them, but unlike the PS2 games, these never reached the highest of highs. But let's go back to the original Xbox launch, shall we? It all goes back to Consumer Electronics Show 2001, when the Xbox was first unveiled. While Bill Gates was giving his speech, none other than The Rock, who almost ruined WrestleMania 40, made an appearance. He then had some back and forth fun with Bill Gates. THQ then announced that same day that a wrestling game for the Xbox launch was set to be released under the name WWF Raw is War. However, with many Japanese companies a bit hesitant to support the Xbox, this meant THQ needed another company to fill the void that Yuke's weren't going to fill themselves. Enter Anchor Incorporated. Founded on October 1st, 1996, their backlog up to this point didn't leave a lot to be desired. All they had at this point was the 1999 Sega fighting game Toy Fighter, which was supposed to get a Dreamcast release, and Ultimate Fighting Championship on the Dreamcast. That game must have caught someone at THQ's attention, as that's the only way I could see them getting involved. Also, Toy Fighter did some wrestling-like elements to it, which probably influenced the developer choice. The game was going to tout many abilities that took advantage of the new system. Then, as more about the game came out, it was noted to have a grappling stuff similar to No Mercy, but would still have the zippy, fast-paced action of SmackDown 2, with a little touch of what Anchor had in UFC. Alas, while the game itself was looking to be coming along fine, Jay Allard's words of it being one of the key launch titles did not hold up. In a press release in 2001, sometime after the launch of the Xbox, where Raw was mysteriously absent, THQ, in addition to several retail sources, announced the delay of Raw is War, which was renamed to just WWF Raw due to both the purchase of WCW, which essentially ended the Monday Night Wars, and 9/11. They had said they wanted to polish the game and make it look as good as possible. In spite of this small setback, the game did manage to get released in early 2002. As a heads up of the competition it was going against, Jet Set Radio Future and Reckless the Yakuza missions released the same month that this game came out. In spite of this, the game did decently enough, even making platinum hits, but without the WWF branding due to the name change, much like Just Bring It's greatest hits release. Though Beyond Disc content seems to be the same. There was even a very special edition in Japan that actually had Hollywood Hogan in a piece of promo merch, even though he was nowhere to be seen in the game. In any case, WWF Raw is I almost said Raw is War, sorry. WWF Raw released on February 12, 2002 for North America, September 27, 2002 for Europe, and October 3, 2002 for Japan. A PC version came out on October 14, 2002 for North America, and November 1, 2002 for Europe. I don't recommend you play this version. I tried to play it years ago, and despite more than meeting the system requirements, it was just flat out unplayable. bad frame rate all around, the controls were not good, worst optimization on modern systems, yeah. Get it on Xbox if you want to. Should you though? Let's find out. WWF Raw has several modes of play. Exhibition, Title Match, King of the Ring, Create a Wrestler, and Museum. The Museum will let you view superstar biographies and the many weapons you can pick up and use. You'll have to earn the right to see them here though, more on that later. King of the Ring will let you play out a tournament like you've seen in the real product. You can do singles, tag, triple threat, or even fatal 4-way tournaments. The latter two of which I'm pretty sure have never been done in real life. Exhibition will let you play matches freely. You can do singles, tag, and tornado tag matches, triple threats, fatal 4-ways, battle royals, which are more like fatal 4-way elimination matches where after each pinfall or submission someone's eliminated, and 2-on-1 or 3-on-1 handicap matches. While the basics are here, specialty matches seem to be MIA. No tables, ladders, cage, Hell in a Cell, or anything like that. It feels like a step back if you came from the SmackDown games, but hey, given this is the first on Xbox, I guess we can let it slide for now. What is here can be done under hardcore rules where anything goes. You can set time limits, how long you want the count to be, whether there will be interference, and you can set it to have specific options for pinfalls, submissions, rope breaks, and disqualifications. The main mode, though, is Title Mode. This is similar to Path of a Champion from WrestleMania X8. You'll fight a set number of matches, with the final match being a particular title for that said title. There are 6 titles to go for here. You got the Light Heavyweight, Women's, Hardcore, European, Intercontinental, and WWF Heavyweight Championships can be won here. I should perfectly mention, by the way, that there is no restrictions for any title to go for whatsoever. Meaning if you wanted Rikishi to go for the Light Heavyweight Championship, or The Rock for the the Women's Championship, you can. Which is pretty ridiculous and not how it should be, but hey, Wild Wild West, I guess. So that's pretty much the main modes in a nutshell, but how well does it play? WWF Raw on the surface plays similarly to the PS2 lineage of SmackDown games. You'll use a series of grapples and strikes against your opponent to wear them down, then hit your finisher when the time is right and hopefully get the pinfall. However, this game does do a few things different to differentiate itself from the SmackDown games. For starters, there's a voltage meter on the bottom of the screen. See, the way you get to finishers is that you need to keep momentum by landing successful attacks. When the voltage meter hits a certain amount in your favor, you can then hit your finisher. It's like a tug of war going on here. To further reinforce this, there's a stamina meter. As you hit moves, this meter will go down. If it hits the left side, your wrestler will need to rest for a moment before continuing any attacks. Unfortunately, the entire nature of the game makes this feel very conflicting with how the gameplay flows. If you can't tell, this game is trying to mix the fast-paced action of SmackDown games while containing elements that would be seen in Day of Reckoning 2 that would make it more in line with the older N64 style wrestling games like No Mercy. The problem here is that when you mix two clashing ideas together, if you don't make it flow well, the gameplay feels all over the place, and it most certainly does here. Beyond that, some of these other gameplay mechanics don't actually work as they should. Remember the voltage meter? Yeah, there are times where the amount you get for an attack doesn't make any sense. It's basically whatever the game deems worthy for you at that time. Even worse, sometimes when you hit a move, your opponent's voltage meter will swing in their favor instead of yours, which makes no sense at all. My guess is that it has to do with less move repetition. The problem is, the movesets in this game aren't varied. You've got your basic strikes and grapples, attacks off the ropes and top of the turnbuckle, counter grapples, running moves, down strikes, grapples, apron, and weapon attacks. Now that may seem like a lot, except you will have to use many of the same moves to take down your opponent. It's at this point I just wish they went with a normal keep attacking to build up the meter to gain a finisher, then hit a finisher like in the SmackDown series. It also doesn't help that there are many gameplay quirks that hurt the overall enjoyment. Grabs can sometimes register as hits, like when you attempt to grapple someone on the ropes, and on top of that, the countering is very inconsistent. There are times where an opponent can counter you after time and time again you attempt to grapple them, after hitting a down move, and other times it just will not work. I don't know if this is a me thing, but I've never found the countering all that effective in these games, but it especially does not work here. On top of that, the AI feels like it's playing faster than you in many different ways, such as striking faster than you even if you hit first. The hit detections are really all over the place here. The big examples include getting up from moves quicker than expected, like a DDT, and other times they'll just get up from a pinfall, especially a roll-up, while it will take you longer to get up like you got hit, even if you didn't. Combine all that with matches that drag their feet because of the tug-of-war nature of the voltage meter, limited continues in exhibition mode, or the title match mode I should say, and trying to unlock the wrestlers actually becomes a pain. At least the game controls okay-ish. When in the ring, use the D-pad to walk around, or the left analog stick to run. When you're running, it definitely feels a bit more looser. A is grapple, X is strike, Y is block, B is taunt, and X and A will let you do the counter attack, if you can time it properly. Press B near the opponent to pin them. Don't get too close if you want to taunt. B is also for tag and picking up weapons. You can use L or R triggers to change the target, and push both the trigger buttons to turn targeting off, which you can already do in the options menu amongst other UI changes. You can use the strike and grapple buttons against turnbuckle opponents, climb up the turnbuckle with the D-pad plus B, and you can do the same to enter/exit the ring. In terms of grappling, after pressing A, you can press A plus a direction or X plus a direction for throwing/striking grapples respectively. B for position change, Y to release, or press B plus a direction to Irish whip. A allows you to escape a throwing attack, and X applies for striking attacks here. Reverse attacks by pressing the same button command as the opponent. The countering, like I said, only seems to work whenever it wants to. When running, you can do running/grapple strikes. And you can also pick up opponents by pressing A when they're down, and you can strike and grapple down opponents. You can do grapples and strikes while standing on the apron with the same buttons as normal attacks. Jump over the ropes with B, use the strike button when holding a weapon to use it, A throws it, Y drops it, and you can do a running weapon attack with X plus any options for running. Finally, if you press A and B when the opponent is groggy and the voltage meter is flashing to perform your finishing move, not that you'll be really able to given the nature of the AI. In theory, all these controls are fine, but it feels like there is some input delay going on when it comes to button presses. It just adds to the clunkiness of this game. Before you ask, no, the pressure sensitivity of the buttons are not used. They could have been for grapples and strikes to flesh out more move variety. The graphics for this game are actually very good. For being an early window Xbox game, the graphics really had to showcase what the Xbox was capable of, and I think Anchor did a good job in this regard. The models look pretty good. Details are especially prevalent in things like muscles, skin looks smooth across all player characters, wrestling accessories like elbow pads and knee braces look good, faces, hair, and everything about the models really take advantage of the Xbox's power, at least at the time. Model stuff also applies to weapons and the arena. The Raw set does look pretty good and closer to how it did in real life around this time. The ring looks fine, though the ropes look a little more blocky than usual. On top of that, the crowd doesn't really look all that good. They look more like worse than looking PS1 models, but at the same time, it doesn't really have much of an impact on the gameplay. On top of that, there are various little details in the light that make the experience feel more unique, like crowds scattering when fighting in them, and grabbing clothing when fighting. You also have very good looking animations across the board, from moves in the ring, the running and walking, and the entrances, which are very faithful to real life and even looking better than in Just Bring It, all animations look good. You can even interrupt them if you want to start the action sooner, which is a very nice touch. And it really wouldn't be seen until, say, the 2K games, if you will. Also, Anchor loved these animations that on certain moves, there's an instant replay cam. That makes this, if I remember correctly, one of the first wrestling games to have such a feature to my knowledge. In general, WWF Raw is a pretty looking game. The sound design is also on point. The music will sound familiar to anyone who's played Air Guys, Tobal 2, and Loomies. That's because it's the same composer, Takayuki Nakamura. It's like a techno mix with some rock and electric guitars where applicable. The music here pretty much sounds similar to the ones seen in other WWF games from this time period, at least the SmackDown stuff. It serves its purpose fine, but you probably won't be going out of your way to listen to most of the songs on this soundtrack with very few exceptions. Sound effects for ring slams, weapon strikes, normal strikes, and grapples, crowd noises, and all that usual stuff is fine, though it doesn't seem balanced in some instances. Maybe the default audio settings aren't the best, I don't know. Voice acting, there's really not much. You have a generic announcer for counting pinfalls, no ref in the ring by the way, not even a little animated one on screen like in WCW NWO Revenge, and generic grunts so all the wrestlers sound the same. That's a bit disappointing, but what can you do really? Replayability can give you quite a bit depending on what you're looking for. Want new characters? Win the Women's, Hardcore, and WWF Championship to respectively unlock Stephanie, Shane, and Vince McMahon. Win all the titles, and you unlock Fred Durst. This makes one of 2 WWF games he appears in, the other being Just Bring It. This is probably because his band, Limp Bizkit, and their song Rollin' was used as The Undertaker's theme at this time. There are 3 types of items you can unlock. Title belts, when winning them in title match mode, weapons, when you pick them up, and various accessories. Yeah, one cool thing about this game is that you can attack wrestlers who are wearing certain accessories, like Undertaker's bandana, and put them on yourself. And you can then view them in the museum. It's a nice idea, but there's so much in there that it can feel like excess grinding. Not the good kind, might I add. WWF Raw is a decent first attempt at an Xbox wrestling game. It looks good, sounds good for the most part, not barring some awkward sound mixing. Decent controls with some okay replayability, and the game certainly does feel like a decent presentation of Raw on air. However, the gameplay feels very clunky, the voltage meter doesn't work properly, meaning you're not going to hit your finishers often, which leads to matches taking longer than they honestly should. The mix of No Mercy plus SmackDown doesn't work. Some of the replayability for the museum items feels like grinding, and there isn't a lot of match types or other arenas, and the whole game just really doesn't feel tight on the whole. If you play any of the SmackDown games from this time, then you'll understand what I mean. It's not a bad first attempt, but given what came out before on other consoles, and even the game's sequel, I was kind of hoping for better. This probably would have gotten lost in the shuffle with the other Xbox launch titles that all blow this one out of the water. If you want to get it for the heck of it, it's a $10 game, and I think that's a fair price for what it has. Definitely not one of the worst wrestling games, but not one of the best at the same time. I give WWF Raw a 3 out of 5. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe below and check out the playlist on screen for more content. To help support the show beyond the usual means, check out my Patreon and Ko-fi on the link tree in the description. And come by my Twitch where I conquer my backlog one game at a time. See you in the next video!